For when we
Right.
24th of May and things like
We're going to wrap up
Official
this
occasion.
morning with two distinguished ladies with us this morning. I'm glad they took time off to come. Glad to have Mrs. Shirley Charles. Good morning. Long time I haven't seen you actually.
Yes, but
The last time you were here-
I don't drive anymore, so
You
you
don't
won't
drive.
see me often now.
Right, right. I have to drive up Spring to see you.
Yes.
And Mrs. Payne-Banfield, I haven't seen Mrs. Payne-Banfield for quite a while too. I don't think I've seen you on the beach for quite a while.
Oh,
Only
yeah.
on Saturdays.
Only on Saturdays.
Only Saturdays you go now?
Only Saturdays.
That's how
I
we
don't want
jump.
to advertise it. The fan club might come down to see me.
Well, there are two of the ladies who attended the distinguished Anglican High School.
No,
And
correctly.
help me.
Church of England High School.
Church of
I
England High School.
attended.
You attended.
I attended Anglican High School.
Cool.
But when the Church of England stopped being the Church of England and became an Anglican church,
Okay. All right.
the names changed.
The name change.
And I remember one of the old girls saying, and it changed just like that, no demonstration or anything, you know, to change.
Well, we have some pretty interesting pictures from Miss Charles. Miss Charles was one of the students of the 40s.
Yes, 1941 to 46.
Right. And Mrs. Banfield of the 60s.
More like the 50s.
Right. So, pretty interesting.
But let us put it this way. Mrs. Charles went to Lamely Hill. Where
Lamely House.
Help me with some history now. Help me with Lamely Hill.
Lamely House.
Where is this now?
Lamely House is where First Caribbean Bank is.
Okay.
That's the same site.
So that's going up Canish Hill.
It was
Church
at the-
Street?
It was at the top of the hill there,
Uh-huh.
just where that bank is now, three-story building. And when you coming down Church Street, if you go to the car park, to enter the bank, as it is now, the first door you went in, you took a right and go up the steps to go into that building. Because where the bank has all its performances at the bottom, used to be a bookstore there,
Right.
run by Mr. Jacobs, who was headmaster of the Anglican High School. He had a bookstore there. So you went up the steps. The Church of England High School occupied the top floor of the building. So there was the
Middle floor.
bookshop down there. Then the bottom, the two floors, because that other part there above the bookstore was where the prep school of the high school was, with a few children.
Well, before we even go through, let's, Gawi, if it's humanly possible, let's get a picture of what was this population of the Church of England
High School.
Now,
CEHS.
right, now called Anglican High School. So that would have been the entire population of the school in sometime in the 1940s.
41, that I went in 41 but, and left in 46.
You could recognize yourself there.
Yes, oh yes, it is easy to. As
You
a
in the
matter of
front,
fact, I
back
remember
row, or the front
everybody.
row? You would be in which row?
I would be at the top.
So you were tall.
That was form 3.
Right.
And that whole back row at the top was the whole form. 15 of us, that's a form, eh?
15.
Big form.
Big form, 15. So, in actual fact, you knew everybody who went to that school at that time.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I could call all the names of those there now. Yes, one by one, yes. And it gives you a feeling of belonging. You know, when you knew everybody.
I want to show what would have been a uniform of a high school girl back then. This is it here.
Yeah.
Right. So, Gavi, this one here would have been a uniform of a high school girl then. The tie was not that big, Mrs. Banfield.
There was no tie. We didn't have those
So what
ties
were you
like
doing?
you know.
Is this you?
No, that is Doreen Ross.
With a big hat?
Oh yes,
Oh,
hat,
yes,
hat,
oh,
the
yes.
hat, and around the hat we had a band. The hat band had the same colors like what the tie had.
So you mean you sat in class with this big hat?
No.
When did you wear the hat then?
We walked
To school?
once you're going to school, you're supposed to be dressed that way to walk the street to go down, and then when you get to school, you go upstairs in the attic of that building. That's where the hat room was, and that's an interesting area, because the building belonged to Mr. Passy. You know, we all heard about Mr. Passy, and the hat room was in the attic. Mr. Passy, story says, Mr. Passy died. He was an Englishman. And the body was to be sent back to England. But in those days, you didn't have all this kind of... So his body was put in a cask of rum to preserve,
To preserve it.
to preserve it until they could ship it. And the caretaker didn't know there was a body in the cask of the rum, so he would go and steal some of the rum and drink it. But the fact that Mr. Passy's dead body was kept there for many years, for some time, that hat room where we all had to go and put our hats was a haunted room. We always were afraid. But but you had to go upstairs. You come into school and go out, run upstairs and hang your hat and run back down because Mr. Passy is there, We all heard about Mr. Passy.
So, Mrs. Banfield, when you got there now in the late 50s, 60s?
Not late 50s. Why you keep putting me in the late 50s, 60s? I went to the Anglican High School in 1953.
All right. So when you got there then, hat and thing was...
No, we wore hats.
Still?
Yeah, man. I have my hatband still.
Help us to appreciate the relevance. I could see everything.
No, the sun was hot.
Yes, and you
we
walked.
wore hats.
And everybody walked in those
And
days.
in those days, ladies wore hats to the market and all of that. There's a picture that I saw, I think from Dr. Beverly Steele, where the 1937 march from the market to Government House, when Marish was protesting the measures that the colonial government had put in. And all the ladies wore hats.
Of course.
Big broad hats.
Even men too. Men wore hats.
Men wore hats so they could tell the ladies good afternoon
morning,
and
tip their
hats.
So, Ms. Charles, let's go back to boys were part of the
yes.
Church of England
Yes.
school.
And AHS.
Just a few of them.
Right, so this here, you're going to see it on the screen in a moment. This is a group of young men. These are girls. These are boys.
Yeah, boys.
Boys and girls, right?
But you see what happened is that the school always had a junior school.
Okay.
And that would have been a primary school, really.
Yes, they called it prep.
So this
They
would have been
call
a
it prep.
primary.
Yes.
Right.
And that school, after you went up the steps and got to the top floor, you went down to the prep school. It was with low there.
Good. And pretty interesting. Right, so
And we had 5 forms in that building.
5 forms. And you say a big class would have been 15.
15. Now, our class was the biggest, I think. I don't think anybody got beyond 15, 14 and 15.
Right. Unlike what we have now. So we have seen this gradual change, and you have experienced it, Mrs. Banfield, you have experienced it. It's a pretty significant change.
Well, I think that...
Let me put it this way first. If you were to, let's say you were in Mars and you came back to Earth, and you look at high school today, it's certainly not the high school that you went to.
No. Well, as a matter of fact, a dark skirt and white shirts, right. But we didn't have our shirts inside. We wore a blouse outside. It was a midi, as you would see in the picture there. You see, her picture is where is it? You see? Outside. We didn't have belts in the waist, and we didn't have ties like yours.
Okay.
This was the colors.
A shorter tie. Or
You made a kind of tie.
A shorter tie. So
Because the ribbon for that was quite wide, and you doubled it. Yes, you see, you doubled it there, and put a little ring at the top.
And the skirt was long, to your knees.
Oh yes.
The skirt was long.
Well, the skirt is still long.
The skirts were
Still
long,
long.
yes.
So that's the only thing that has
And black shoes
remained.
and black socks.
Yeah.
Now they wear black shoes and white socks.
Right.
And then the collar, the back of that collar was a sailor collar.
Yeah.
So you just had this here to
I had a
push.
bit of that.
You had a bit of that.
I had a bit of the sailor collar and the midi.
So this thing has evolved,
Yeah.
tremendously.